Howdy. This is
Hi.
this is Jeff Kay from Echoes Across Time, preserving the past, inspiring the future. And this week, our guest is Monique Gibson. She is a hypnotherapist from Australia. And I don't remember where. So I'll let you say where.
Shepparton, Victoria, regional Australia.
Perfect. So with that being said, you had a great bio. I know you've been through a lot of stuff.
I sure have.
And you know how to help a lot of people. So
Mhm.
inspire us.
Okay, where shall we start?
Well, why did you begin? Well, from what I read, you suffered from a lot. You saw some doctors and they really didn't help you. And you went on a path of more like a mind-body approach.
Yeah. Yes, I did.
So
start there?
Let's start there.
Okay. So probably started in about 2014. I was in my early 20s and I got severely unwell. And like severely unwell. My body felt like it was starting to shut down. It got to the point where I couldn't walk from one side of the room to the other without my legs collapsing, and I was shaking 24/7, like body spasms. And I had to stop work for 12 months, and like I thought I was dying. I really thought I had something like motor neuron disease. I thought I might have MS because my muscles just weren't working. And when I would go to doctors, they just told me I was stressed. I was just too stressed and I needed to remove the stress from my life. So they were not helpful. And then and because I was so sick, I would cry in their office because I was only young. And then they would use that as a reason to say, oh, you're just being dramatic, and they literally told me it was my fault. I was sick. I wasn't trying hard enough to get better. So
Really?
what that led, yeah. And I had one psychologist actually, because I was admitted into the hospital a couple of times, and one psychologist, both visits were about a month apart. On the second visit, he took me into a room and he said, some people, they go to the gym and they lift small weights because they don't want to push themselves and they never get stronger. And other people, they go to the gym and they lift the really heavy weights because, they know when they cause themselves, they strain their muscles, it's going to make them stronger. He said, you're the first person. You're not trying hard enough to get better.
Wait a minute. Let's back up. One, I speak off the cuff. I have no filter, but I got to ask this question.
Yeah.
What kind of doctor
psychologist
it's your fault?
Yeah, all of them did. All of them did. The head of neurology.
Are you seeing that would possibly tell you it's your fault?
I really don't know why there was so much stigma around me. I really wasn't sure why I was getting treated the way I was. The head of neurology, after my second admission into hospital, I said to the nurse, because they were going to send me home, I said, last time you did that, I got worse. So I need you to help me. Like, I don't have a solution right now and I don't know what's wrong because I didn't have a diagnosis yet. And so she got the head of neurology to come and see me, and he told me not to come back to the hospital. He said, they can't help me, stop coming to the hospital.
Oh, so I guess that's why they call it, quote, a doctor's practice.
So at that point I was living in Melbourne. But I grew up in a small farming community about 5 hours from Melbourne. So I moved back home after all of that because I couldn't work and I was missing the country anyway. So, but then again, when I'd go to doctors, I'd be upset and they would just be like, oh, you have severe anxiety and depression. And I'm like, no, I don't. I'm just very unwell. But no one would listen. So I ended up I'd spend all my spare time in the library trying to find books on mysterious illnesses. I ended up diagnosing myself before someone else did. But what happened was, it's actually a really long story, but I'll try and keep it brief or we can expand on it throughout the podcast. But because I was told I was really stressed, that's when I really learned about personal development. I was doing all of the internal work. And then what happened from there is, because I was exploring so much within myself, I actually brought up a repressed trauma that I had no idea was there. So I brought up that, so I think I was about 23 at the time, and I had memories come through that I was sexually assaulted when I was 18 out one night with drinking with friends. So And then from there, I mentally, I didn't handle it. My brain literally felt like it snapped. So I had a little episode of psychosis. So I went and stayed in a mental health care facility. And around that time, I got the first diagnosis, which was functional movement disorder. It's also known as functional neurological disorder. Essentially, it causes symptoms like MS and Parkinson's, but more it's the signals that are playing up, not the actual physical aspects of it. So that kind of explained a lot of the symptoms, but again, it was one of those things that doctors had no idea how to deal with, and unfortunately it would also sometimes go into the category of psychosomatic, so I still wasn't really getting any help. So I learned myself how to heal. I actually got really fascinated. I learned about the mind-body connection. I learned about how kind of our emotions manifest as physical things. I learned how like holistic healing, the nutrition, exercise, all those sorts of things. I really got really into yoga, meditation, all that sort of stuff. And I really had to find my own path. I did find some really good allied health professionals, like an osteopath who was quite helpful. I had a physio who was quite helpful. So I would find some gold in there, and I had really good friends who were very supportive, which was really good. And then 3 years after that diagnosis, it actually turned out I had a really rare genetic disorder. That was the problem. Only 1 in a million people have it. It's called Anderson-Tawil syndrome. And essentially it affects your heart and your muscles, and it makes them not work properly, and it tends to flare up once you get into your 20s. So all of those times when I was going to the doctors saying something's wrong, and they were saying, oh, it's your fault. I was actually, my muscles and my heart weren't actually working properly, and that's why I was so sick. So that was a very hard pill to swallow. When I got told that, I was very upset, because of just all the trauma that it put me through. And it was never my fault. There was something really wrong the whole time. So it was a fun journey.
Didn't they run any tests aside from saying, oh, I'm sorry, there's nothing wrong with you. You can go home now.
I'm not overly sure what happened in the hospital, because I know it, because I had the muscle spasms. I think I was in the neurology department, but they just mustn't have, because basically what the doctor said that diagnosed the rare genetic disorder, they said if you're not looking for it, you won't find it, because it's just so rare, and the only way you find it is through blood tests, and you have to look specifically for the mutated gene in the blood test. So if you're not looking for it, you don't find it. So yeah, the only reason I was diagnosed was because I had a sister who was having heart issues, and she went a whole journey on herself of getting like a year of not getting diagnosed, but she was getting taken much more seriously by doctors and by my family, because it was her heart. And then once they diagnosed her, because it's genetic, they tested the whole family, and it turns out my dad has it, my 2 sisters have it, and my sister's 3 kids have it. But I'm the only one that's really got the muscle symptoms. So I'm really the only one that's had their life severely impacted by it so far.
And what is it? 1 in a million. And
yeah,
and you've got an entire family that has it.
Yeah, everyone except my mom and my brother.
So do they know what causes it?
So essentially, I'm going to be honest, I was so exhausted with medicine, I haven't really done that much research into it. I have tried bits and pieces, but essentially what happens is your gene mutates somehow, and then it messes with your signaling of your body. It messes with your sodium and your potassium channels. So basically what happens with the muscles is when you move your muscles, they get signals to replenish themselves with the potassium nutrients. And then what happens with this condition is that signal is very delayed. So the muscles will go into paralysis, or they'll get very weak, or they'll get very painful. Same as the heart. If you get the heart rate up too quickly, the heart can misfire and missignal, and then that can lead to cardiac arrest. I think it's one of the heart attack versions, but they all have their own different names. So that's essentially how it works. And for whatever reason, well, not really for whatever reason, from what I know, from everything I've learned on how different illnesses affect people, my whole family have different symptoms. So my dad's very asymptomatic. He didn't get told he had it until he was in his 60s. And it's because like he just didn't need to get diagnosed with it. My oldest sister was misdiagnosed many years ago with what's the one where your heart skips a beat? So that's her symptoms, her heart skips beats. And my other sister, who started the diagnosis of it, her heart was beating way too much. But none of them, they all really have the heart stuff, but not so much the muscle stuff. They also do, it's also similar to a condition called long QT, and that's really more for the medical people that know what they're talking about. But essentially also what happens when you exercise, if you get your heart over 150 beats per minute, that's when it starts playing up. And when they monitor your heart, it starts doing weird things and does like a U bend or something. It's very complicated, and I struggle to understand it. So I try and go to my sister because one of them, she's a vet and her husband's a pharmacist, so they're very sciencey. So I try and go to them to get them to explain it to me, but it's a lot to understand, and I'm not overly interested because I'm like, well, I don't need to know what's going on to know how to heal. So, yeah.
So, given all, obviously, this is very serious.
Yeah.
So, how does somebody? Is there a cure? Does it have to be manageable? Is it?
No, it's a lifelong condition. According to medicine, there's no cure. But from my life experience, my knowledge, and if you've ever heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza, his works are very fascinating. There's lots you can do, and there's lots I have done to be able to reduce the symptoms. So when I got the diagnosis of the ATS, I'd done a lot of healing on my own. The only thing I really struggled to eliminate was the muscle weakness. They put me on some medication. The medication was life-changing. It really was. It made me feel like a normal person. It was incredible. I was able to go back to full-time work. I was able to move overseas and live overseas for a while, like things that I never thought were going to be possible for me ever again. However, I'm really into natural approaches, and I really didn't want to be on medication for the rest of my life. So was it the start of 2021? I decided, I'd been on the medication for I think just over 2 years. I decided to come off the medication and kind of figured my own way around it. And it's been really hard, but I've also really found a balance. So the best approaches I have are holistic mind-body connection, checking in with your body, taking care of yourself, reducing your stress levels, all those sorts of things, all of those beautiful things that really help your body come back to homeostasis and be in a healing state.
So I'm sorry for interrupting. So
you're right.
Have you done Western medicine, acupuncture or herbs or anything?
Eastern medicine, you mean?
Yes, Eastern. Sorry.
Yeah. So when I was going through the whole healing journey, yes, I did a lot of that. I had a naturopath, I had an acupuncturist, I had a Chinese medicine doctor, I had it all. So I have tried all of those things, but even for me, I'm a little weird about being reliant on things. So even if it's natural, I'm still like, oh, I don't want to, even if it's natural, I don't want to be on it for the rest of my life. So there are things you can do. The only thing I think once I got the diagnosis with the heart condition, I kind of pulled away from Eastern medicine as well, because I was getting told, don't mix medications, be really careful. You have to be careful of what you take with this heart condition because it might mess it up. So I kind of was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And it's really hard to find that. If I had someone who knew Eastern and Western medicine and joined them together, that would be perfect. A cardiologist who does Eastern and Western medicine, if you're out there, hit me up. It'd be perfect. I really also love learning about epigenetics. Do you know much about epigenetics?
I do. As a matter of fact, I have several people that are scheduled to be on my podcast that are going to speak about that specifically.
Beautiful. It's fascinating. So for the listeners, essentially, I thought I understood it. Sorry, were you saying something?
With that being said, though, explain to everybody exactly what epigenetics is.
Yeah. So with a bit of a disclaimer, I thought I understood it, but then I went to an epigenetics conference last year up in Queensland, and I was like, this is not what I thought epigenetics was. But essentially, what it is on a basic level is your genes are not, your life is not determined by your genes. So you have, what is it, like I'm going to mess the number up. It's like 100-something thousand. Anyway, you have thousands of genes, and so they're not all being expressed. So essentially what it is based on your environment will determine what genes get expressed, and that's your external environment and your internal environment. So we all know, you know, certain toxins, that sort of stuff will give you cancer, and it's known in certain foods, particular diets will, you know, make you more susceptible to these things. But it's also just as influenced by your internal environment, your feelings, your emotions, your thoughts, your stress, all that sort of stuff. So when you are constantly stressed, when you are constantly in a lower mood state, when you are having particular thoughts, it actually influences your cells, and it influences whether your genes are upregulated or downregulated, and it essentially influences how your genes are expressed. So this is why when I said before, based on how my family all have different symptoms, I'm the only person in my family that has severe trauma. So I'm not surprised I'm the one with the most severe symptoms of the condition because of my life experiences. So essentially, epigenetics basically says that you can influence what genes are expressed. So if you cultivate an environment outside and inside of a place that's more able to bring your body back to homeostasis, able to bring your body back to a healing state. And this is all of what Dr. Joe Dispenza work is about, Dr. Bruce Limpton. They're both very fascinating in the way they're teaching people how they have the power to heal their body, no matter what the condition is. And this is how I've come to a point where I can live with this condition, where I'm supposed to be on medication for the rest of my life, but I'm pretty much thriving without it. I'll still have my days, but I'm doing miraculously for what I should be doing without medication. It's quite, you know, amazing, really, what I've been able to manage for myself.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, just for my own edification, from epigenetics perspective,
Yes.
your genes, like say you had an alcoholic in your family before you were born. Now, after you're born, there is the possibility from an epigenetic perspective that you could have a trait of alcoholism.
It depends on the discussion. So Gabon Morte, he does a lot of research into this, writes some books on it. So since learning about, because I'm a health coach and a hypnotherapist and obsessed with the human mind. So I've done a lot of learning about the human mind and how it all works in human behavior. Essentially, it's not necessarily the gene. There's not necessarily a gene that says that you are going to become an alcoholic. It's you are witnessing coping mechanisms. So you kind of just repeat what you are seeing as coping mechanisms in life. And basically I don't know enough to really just to be able to answer this with enough justice to be able to fully explain how it works. But essentially, I think it's the discussion between, is it genes or is it you? That's what you witness. That's what you grew up with. That's what you learn is the human behavior of, this is how I cope with my emotions. I turn to alcohol because that's what I saw, kind of thing. It's the generational trauma also falls into the category of epigenetics as well. Your body kind of carries these traumas, and until you are doing the inner work to remove them, you're just going to rinse and repeat them generation after generation.
Now, what I know, having clearings and everything myself, because I've actually worked with people who have actually cleared trauma. And believe me, I've had enough trauma in my life, so I have lots of trauma. Now, the way your body absorbs pain, it holds it in specific muscles depending upon what the pain is. I recall. Is that correct?
So the body holds on to trauma. Yes, the body holds on to even repressed emotions. So essentially, this is where the hypnotherapy becomes really incredibly fascinating. So I do a type of hypnotherapy called rapid transformational therapy. And basically what happens is you get someone coming to you with an issue, and then you put them under hypnosis and you regress them to find out what's happened in their life that's led to this issue. So let's use anxiety as an example. So I regress them. I'd be like, you're going to the root, the cause, the reason for your anxiety. And we'll go through different memories in their life. Sorry,
how far back I'm sorry. How far back can you regress people?
as far I've taken people back to the womb. It's fascinating. I've also taken, if you believe in past lives, I've taken people back to before. And this isn't, we don't have any influence over this. I just say you're going back to the root, the cause, the reason. Sometimes they'll go back to this lifetime. Sometimes they'll go adulthood, childhood, the womb. I've gone back to when I was born in the hospital. And I know for skeptics, it sounds so bizarre, but until you experience it, like there's no doubt that that is what is happening, because you feel it, you see it, everything's so clear, the details, it's mind blowing. I love it.
Now, do people have to show up and see you, or is this something that can be done virtually, or both?
You can do it online, yes. So you can do it in person and online. I actually quite like it online because people are in their own homes, so they're more comfortable. I feel like they open up easier. So it depends on the person, what they prefer.
Well, for me, it'll probably be easy virtually since you're halfway around the world.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry for interrupting. Please continue.
So you regress them, and again, like they go back to fascinating things. And I've had people that have gone back to being a soul, and they were kind of like, oh, what were we working on? I can't remember what I was working on with this client because it was a while ago, but she went back to being a soul before she came onto this planet. She was like, I don't want to go down there. I don't want to, I'm not ready. But she was kind of like, she's like, oh, I don't know if I want to go to Earth, kind of thing. And it made a lot of sense to whatever we were working on, but I can't quite recall. So you regress them, and this is basically coming back to what you were saying, is in sometimes it's massive trauma, sometimes it's horrific. I mean, you really learn how horrible humans are because people have been through some terrible things. And sometimes it's tiny. Sometimes it's like my I'm 5 years old, both my parents are at work. I'm unlovable. And then that becomes a lifelong story, and that just rinses and repeats, and they just go through life. I'm unlovable. I can't have what I want. People don't love me. I'm not enough. Simply because as adults, we know your parents are working for you because they love you. They want to provide for you. But as a 5-year-old, that's what they determine, because they need to answer the question, why aren't my parents here? Well, they're not here because they don't love me. So you're like, then basically what happens if you go through these traumatic moments, big or small t, little t traumas, if you don't deal with the emotions, and the more I go, the more I experience this, the more there is zero doubt in my mind, this is what happens. Again, Dr. Joe Dispenza's books really help break this down, as well as the book, The Body Keeps the Score, is also a really good way to break this down. These emotions get stored in your body. If you do not deal with them, they will manifest as a physical illness. They will manifest as a mental illness. That is what happens, because our body is basically like it's a communication channel. So if you have something going on within you, it's probably your body's trying to communicate with you. It's trying to say, hey, you're not dealing with this. I love my trainer, Marissa Peer. She always uses the quote, that will not find its expression through tears will cause other organs to weep. In my hypnotherapy sessions, I've had, say, someone with fibromyalgia, and we went through terrible memories, awful. And after our session, she stopped her pain medication that she's been on for 20 years. I've had people with psoriasis. We've gone through the session, their psoriasis cleared up like that after the session. I've had people with chronic back pain. The back pain's gone after you deal with the emotions and the memories. It's just fascinating.
That's funny, because I'm going to give them back to when you first started. You said you saw a bunch of doctors. I've got my own medical concerns. And that is, I was diagnosed when I was, I guess, almost 15, 20 years ago, having the worst case of eczema.
Well, there you go.
On record.
Yep.
And right now I'm on a drug called Dupixent, which for the rest of my life, as far as I know.
Yep.
So maybe you and I will have to
maybe we will. I would have no doubt that there will be emotions coming behind that. So what I found the common theme through skin conditions is a fear of showing up as who you are, kind of like it's like a shield. It's kind of like, I can't be who I am. I've put on a shield because who I am gets judged and criticized. So therefore it's kind of like a protection mechanism. And that's all a lot of illnesses are. There some form, some way, your body is trying to protect you. Parts in IFS, which is internal family systems, which is basically exploring the different parts in yourself and having dialogues with them. It just highlights when you do it and when you learn it, everything that's going on, the good, the bad, it's all that parts of us, different little personalities inside us, which is so fascinating when you dialogue with them. They're just trying to protect you. They think they're helping you. And the common theme in the RTT is the three, what are they? They're trying to keep you safe. They're trying to punish you. What was the third? Oh, it's gone from me now. It might come to me later.
Oh, good. I'm schizophrenic.
Are you?
No, me.
Yeah?
No, I was being facetious.
Oh, sarcasm goes straight over my head. Sometimes I question if I'm on the spectrum because sarcasm doesn't work.
So, because my eczema happened when I was getting a divorce.
There you go. How interesting. I mean, if you're open, we can run through a little exercise and find out what's going on. But if you're not open, we can skip past it.
Hey, I'm always open to it.
Okay, we can give it a go. So
this ought to be interesting.
yeah, it should only take 5-10 minutes. It would just give you a bit. Obviously, we're not going to do a whole session because they take like 2 hours, but we can do a quick little exercise to see if you might get some answers. So what I want you to do is I just want you to take a few deep breaths. And people can do this at home as well. It's a really good way to get to know what's going on. Close your eyes down for me. Okay. Take a deep breath. Now I want you to imagine that you can turn your eyes inwards. You can turn your eyes inwards and you can find this part of you that came up with this eczema. And it's the easiest thing. You don't have to see it or do it. You're just imagining that you found this part of you that came up with this eczema. You're still Jeff, but you found the part of Jeff that's causing this on your skin. And now that we found this part, we're going to give it a voice. We're going to give it a chance to say what it wants to say, to communicate with you, to let you know what it's doing and what's going on for it. So if it helps, put a hand to your heart and a hand to your belly to bring that connection to your body. Take another deep breath. Now I'm going to say some sentences and I'm going to get you to repeat them and finish them for me. I'm going to say the full sentence first and then we're going to break it down. So the full sentence is, I'm the part of Jeff that is causing this eczema and my role in Jeff's life is to, and you're going to finish that. So what you're going to do is you're just going to speak for this part. So you're not speaking as Jeff, you're speaking as this part that causes eczema. So repeat after me. I'm the part of Jeff.
I'm the part of Jeff
that causes this eczema.
That causes this eczema.
And my role in Jeff's life is to?
And my role in Jeff's life is to?
And finish that for me. Whatever comes to the surface. Doesn't always make sense.
Be free.
Be free. And I need to be free because?
I need to be free because I feel like I'm being held back.
Beautiful. Now we're going to do that again. I'm the part of Jeff that causes this eczema.
I'm the part of Jeff. I'm sorry, what?
I'm the part of Jeff.
I'm the part of Jeff.
That causes this eczema.
That causes this eczema.
And my function in Jeff's life is to?
And my function in Jeff's life is to be free.
And I need to be free because?
And I need to be free because I've been held back for many years.
Beautiful. And I've been held back because?
And I've been held back because my parents never let me be who I am.
Amazing. You're doing a really good job. Okay, we're going to do that again. I'm the part of Jeff.
I'm the part of Jeff.
That is causing this eczema.
That is causing this eczema.
And my purpose in Jeff's life is to?
And my purpose in Jeff's life is to be free.
And I need to be free because?
I need to be free because my parents inhibited my voice from a young age.
Amazing. And one last time, I'm the part of Jeff.
I'm the part of Jeff.
That is still holding on to this eczema.
That is still holding on to this eczema.
And my only intention in Jeff's life now is to?
And my only intention in Jeff's life now is to let him be free and be
And I
himself.
need to do that because
And I need to do that because I need to live my own life, not someone else's.
yeah, amazing. All right, when you're ready, open your eyes. See, in a session, we'd then go into that, we'd dive into that, and we'd keep communicating with that part, and we'd be like, okay, well, and we communicate to the part, okay, well, you're actually hurting Jeff than helping him right now. And we'd kind of explain, I know you're trying to set him free, but you're actually causing him all of this irritation. And you'd have a dialogue until that part is ready to let go, until that party is ready to recognize, oh shit, like, sorry, are we allowed to swear? You know, I've been causing you issues. I just wanted to help you because these parts just love you. They're like your family. That's why it's called internal family systems. They love you. They just want to help you. But they for some reason they're doing it wrong. I remember I did it once and I had a part, I think it was causing me fear, and I was dialoguing with it. And sometimes you give them, if they're not fully ready to let go, because sometimes they've been with you for years, you give them a different role that's more supportive to get you to where you want to go. So instead of causing me fear, this part was going to set boundaries. And when I do this, I have really strong visuals and I love it. It's so fascinating. And this part was then like, oh yeah, I'll set boundaries. And you could see it had like a high vis jacket on and it's hard helmet on. It's like, I'm going to set boundaries there and I'm going to set boundaries there and I'm going to set boundaries. It just becomes really fascinating. You know, we've got a whole world, a whole village inside of us, and we're not taught that. We're not taught that there's so much going on inside of us, and our ailments that we have in our life are usually a form of self-protection, and we don't know how to communicate with it.
It's funny because given that exercise,
Yeah.
it never occurred to me about my parents.
Yeah. And that's the thing. People will come into my office and they'll think they know what the issue is. And then you take them through their session. They're like, I haven't thought about that in years. I didn't know that was still impacting me. But when they're in it, snot, tears, emotions, anger, the emotions are so fresh, which means it's still inside of you.
It never occurred to me.
Yeah. So when you went through that and you did that, was it, you know, when you say it never occurred to you, but once the answers came, were you like, oh, yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah. Isn't it interesting? The human mind, it's so fascinating. I love it. Oh.
That truly, honestly, never even entered my mind. I never even thought about it.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see, you know, I'd if you did a full session and the memories, I imagine the memories you might go back to scenes, key moments in your childhood where maybe you were just being your expressive self and for whatever reason your parents told you to stop. And then the emotions that come through that, it all becomes self-rejection. I'm not okay as who I am. And this is such a common story, is you for some reason you get in trouble for something and then you start to reject yourself. And it becomes a lifelong thing of, I'm not safe being who I am. I'm not allowed to be who I am. I'm rejected. I don't get love when I am myself. So I have to be someone else.
We'll definitely have to do a session, because the other thing that came to mind is I had ADHD.
Yep.
Which way back when there was no label for it.
Yep.
The only label they gave me is that I was a problem child.
Yeah, trouble.
That's the label they gave me.
Yeah. Yeah, so, isn't it interesting? And then that becomes, you know, life is nothing but the stories we tell ourselves. And then I imagine, you know, you're labeled a troubled kid, that becomes your life story. That becomes who you are. Oh, I'm doing this because I'm a problem. I'm, you know, and it just it's just, I could talk about it for hours, Jeff, how fascinating the human mind is.
It's truly amazing.
Yeah.
I actually had no idea.
Yeah.
Please continue. Now,
well, and
now
then,
I can't wait to.
So, and then essentially I'll keep explaining how kind of the sessions work. So you take someone through the memories and then you're going to go through and heal it. So when we go through these different situations, what we needed in the moment from, and for whatever reason, we don't put the blame. Like, you might dialogue if it's a really quite, let's say if we went back to a memory with your parents where maybe they were quite harsh on you, I would then bring you in as the adult you are now. You'd go and you'd protect, let's say it's a 10-year-old you. We'll go in and we'll protect the 10-year-old you, would give them a hug, and we might have a dialogue with the parents being like, I didn't deserve this. You owed me better than this, kind of thing. You brought me onto this planet. Your job was to love me for who I was, kind of thing. And you just say everything that you needed to say, take back your power, your voice. And it's so cool. I do a lot of, are we allowed to swear? Doesn't matter.
Well,
So I do a lot of fuck you therapy with clients. So essentially, if someone's really hurt them, we do fuck you. So I literally say, let's say it was your dad, fuck you, dad. And I'm like, do it louder, fuck you, dad. And, I had this big burly bloke in my office not that long ago, and I have a unit next to him. So I just messaged my neighbor and I was like, don't worry about the yelling coming from my unit. I'm just doing some therapy. I'm not in trouble. And sorry, what was that?
some of the memories that I have, let's see, growing up in the later part of the 60s, so in the later part of being a baby boomer, let's see, I was hit by a belt. My dad lifted me up to where my head hit the ceiling.
Yeah, see, and a lot of those things, if you haven't, it's interesting because we can look back on things from our childhood or our life and we think, oh, I understand that was wrong, or, but I feel like it's not impacting me. But if you haven't truly gone in and processed those emotions, they probably are impacting you. So a lot of the time when you go back to those memories in RTT, you feel the feelings as if it's happening right now. And it's so fascinating how powerful it is. So a lot of people are usually, it's not tears, although I love it when they're crying in my session. If I have a session and someone hasn't cried, I'm like, oh, I don't know if we did it. I don't know if we got there.
Well, it's funny because not funny, but when I was many years ago, I was having surgery. And this is after my dad passed away.
Yep.
I swear I spoke to my dad while I was under anesthesia.
You might do. I had I had a client and his dad passed away when he was a kid, and his best friend passed away a couple of years ago. And we were doing that dialogue instead of having a conversation of like, telling them off, because he was really struggling to let go of the grief. I said, why don't we do the same thing, but tell them everything you feel like you never got to say, how much you love them. And we did that. And I swear to God, he was having a conversation with them properly. I was like, oh, I think you might have some skills there, mate, because you could tell, like, there was one point where obviously he was seeing the conversation in his mind, but he hugged his dad and you could see the visceral reaction, like he was feeling that. And I was like, I think he's actually dialoguing with these people. And we even do that with the people that have hurt you. It's called universal mind or something like that. But I'll dialogue with the not if it's an abuser. If it's an abuser, you don't give them a voice. But if it's not an abuser, if maybe it was just a parent that didn't quite nurture their child the way they needed to, well, then I'll then say, be the dad, tell your son, why did you do that to him? Why did you treat him that way? Why couldn't you love him, kind of thing? And then you get them to speak as their parent. And it's so interesting because they will say the words that actually probably the parent would have said. Someone tried to do this to me with me once, and because a lot of the time it's very healing, the parents usually like, I'm sorry, I should have done better, kind of thing. But my dad, when someone tried to do it with me, my dad was like, so you can take care of yourself, you'll be fine. And so it's not always healing, but most of the time it is like the dialogue will be like, I'm sorry, I learned it in my childhood and then I didn't know how to treat you. And yeah, so it's very, very interesting how it all happens.
Yeah, because on another note, I had to put my dog down in January.
Yep.
As early as last week, I saw a picture. I had a dream, but it was much more vivid than a dream. She was a puppy running through an amazing field.
Yeah.
And it was like so bright. It was so vivid.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
And once you before that sort of experience, what's kind of like your beliefs around this sort of stuff? Have you always been open to, we're able to connect with things, people, animals that have passed? Is there an afterlife? What's your kind of thought processes around it?
Well, it's funny. In November, my aunt passed away.
Mm-hmm.
I happened to get up the exact time she passed.
Isn't it interesting how these things happen? So fascinating.
Well, it's almost like everything is part of a neural network, and we're all connected.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, mind blowing. I remember, I share a little story from my past that kind of was when I started to be like, oh, there's something going on here. So I grew up on a family farm, and we used to have people come from Melbourne a lot to go shooting. So they'd come shoot the ducks off the rice and just come camp for the week and have a good time. And there was a family that would come, and they became really good family friends. And there was we grew up on the river, and there was one day, it must have been a lightning storm or something. I think one of the trees got struck by lightning, so it was on fire and it was burning down. And my dad and a couple of his mates were just being idiots, and they were went down to watch the tree burn, have a bit of a beer, and they were like shooting the gun at the tree, and it would create sparks, just having a good time. Anyway, they could tell that the tree was getting a bit dangerous, so they won't do it anymore. And one of the blokes went to do it he's like, I'll do it one last time. And unfortunately, what ended up happening is the branch snapped off and hit him, and he died. It landed on his head and he died. Me and my mum were at home, and I think I was just a teenager. I would have been like 14 or something at the time. We were just at home watching telly. We had no idea. But the kettle in the kitchen, when it's boiled, it whistles, and it kept whistling, and we weren't touching it. We were just watching telly, and it's gone off like 3 times. We're like, what's going on? And I just joked with mum. I was like, oh, it's a ghost, mum. So I just went and switched off at the power so it wouldn't do it again. And I'd never done it before that. And then I think it was about a month later, his family, his wife, his kids, they came up for a visit to see, for the part of the grieving process, see what happened, kind of let the help. I think they planted some trees and stuff. We were all sitting in the kitchen having a discussion. The kettle did the same thing. It kept whistling again and again. Never done it before, never done it since. And I'm just like, it's just, things like that happen. And we grew up with a haunted house on our farm. So there'd always be really weird stories of people being touched or seeing things, or
I love it.
So interesting.
Because I'm planning to have somebody on, because I live in Charlestown, West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
10 miles from me is Shepherdstown.
Mm-hmm.
Shepherdstown supposedly is the most haunted town in the country.
Oh, how interesting. Have you been?
And there were 2 TV series about it. The Ghost of Shepherdstown.
Wow.
And they give haunted tours year round. So I've invited them to be on my podcast as well.
Oh yeah, that'd be so interesting. I used to do a lot of disability support work over the last couple of years, and one of my clients, she loves ghost hunting. She loves it. So we'd go to cemetery. She's got like one of those EMF readers that's supposed to read the energy. And she wanted to do a trip to go and stay in a haunted asylum. So you stay in the haunted asylum overnight and you go ghost hunting. We didn't get much interaction. A couple of the other groups did, but it was so fascinating. Some of the stories are just mind blowing. I love ghost stories. They freak me out. I mean, I never want to see one, but they're interesting. As long as it stays away from me, I love hearing about it.
I love macabre.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because given my other business, my digital memories, I actually got started from a trauma when I was 7 years old.
Yeah, righto.
Yeah, my grandmother passed away at my feet.
Wow. Oof, what an experience for 7 years.
So then I started to collect birthday cards, holiday cards from family members, and it evolved from there.
Yep.
But to make a long story short, after my parents passed away, there was a box in my parents' basement that I opened. Unbeknownst to me, my mom also collected cards.
Wow.
And had report cards, which, sorry, she actually saved those. Yeah, but I actually have the very first birthday card I was ever given.
Wow. What a memory.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's how, so my digital memories, I
Mm,
help people preserve their memories
yeah.
for future generations.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Beautiful. That's very
And
special.
well, and then I got into this somewhat accidentally because I was watching Ancient Aliens, I believe,
Yep.
because I'm big into all that stuff.
Yeah.
And talking about hieroglyphics and cave paintings. And I was saying, they're more than stories than about photos, videos, slides, and all this other stuff. People also have stories. So that's
Yeah.
where I started the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
So please, stuff. This is why I love having guests on my show, because you
Yeah.
learn just amazing stuff.
Yeah. Everyone's got their own different experiences and everyone's got interesting stories from their life. Yeah.
Oh, mine are interesting. So what else?
What else? Hmm.
You said you could talk
So
for hours.
what are you
Those were
interested in?
those
What
were
do you want
your
to
words,
know?
not mine.
I've been talking about the human brain for ages, human psychology. So I think I mean I love following Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. I hope your listeners go look him up after this if they haven't before. I went and saw him live a couple of weeks ago in Melbourne, and it was so interesting. He tells these healing stories, and he very much reminded me of me because he'd tell this story of how someone's done this miraculous healing, and he's like, I didn't know that was possible. I didn't know people could do that. And I'm the same in my sessions. Like I'll have someone, you know, we'll go through sessions and then suddenly whatever they're dealing with will just dissipate and heal. I'm like, oh, that happens so quickly. I didn't know that was possible. Like it's just mind boggling. Like it blows my mind. And that's why I love it so much, because you're constantly just blown away by the potential of humans. And constantly, I think also just what the mind holds on to. Like I said, the memories can be so small and they can impact you in such a big way. We were taught in our training, and a useful piece for maybe for listeners to take away to explore which one might be there. So there's three main core beliefs we tell ourselves why we can't have what we want. So anytime we go through a memory, when I'm exploring memories with a client, I'm working with them. So I'll take them through the memory and I'll get them to say, like, what's happening, paint a picture for me. And then more importantly, how you're feeling. And then so I'll be like, and that makes me feel, and they'll answer the question. And it also makes me feel, and they'll answer the question. And I feel that way because, and essentially what we're doing is we're trying to get to the root reason, the core belief behind it. And the three main ones are, I'm not enough. I can't have what I want because I'm not enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not successful enough. I'm not enough. And so that will manifest itself in any which way or form. You'll always never feel worthy of what you want. The second main core belief is I can't have what I want because it's not available to me, to someone like me. It's not available to someone like me. It's available to everyone else around me, but it's not available to me. And therefore, I can't have what I want. And the third one is I can't have what I want because I'm too different. It's not available to me because I'm too different. I don't fit in. I'm different from everyone else. I'm too different to get what everyone else gets. And these are our three core limiting beliefs, and they're all lies, but we're all telling ourselves the same thing. So we're constantly telling ourselves, and the last couple of years, I have been going through some serious shadow work. So I'm really having to be diving deep into this stuff. And I do this for a living, but deep down, I've still got some serious things that I need to be shifting and it's only been highlighted to me the last year or so because I've just been going through it and really experiencing it and really giving myself permission to dive into the bits that I've always been avoiding diving into because they were always a little too scary. And you do that, and it's quite interesting how much your life shifts. So I think that's where I've started to do a lot of videos for social media, and I've started ending my videos with, and always remember, feel your goddamn feelings in a healthy way, because we're not doing it. I look around and I see everyone around me and I'm like, we are so uncomfortable with feeling our emotions, and it's not good for us. And we're so uncomfortable with looking at ourselves in the mirror and really acknowledging what our actually internal beliefs are and why we aren't creating what we want in our life is because those internal beliefs, and they're very scary to face. It's really scary to face the idea that you don't feel worthy. It hurts a lot to face that, but
So
it's kind
if,
of, yeah.
sorry, so
Yeah.
if I'm hearing this correctly, I could have every strategy coach in existence, but if I have my limiting beliefs on the other side, it's going to prevent me from getting what I want.
Essentially, yes. And if you do get what you want, you'll find 10 ways to fuck it up because you don't feel worthy of it. Therefore, it might come into your life, but because it's not a part of your identity of what you feel like you deserve, you'll find a way to fuck it up and remove it from your life. But love is a very good example. People do this a lot in love. They might get a partner that actually treats them well, but if they don't feel worthy of that, if they don't love themselves enough more than what this person's loving them, they'll find a way to fuck it up. They'll push it away because it's not, we love what's familiar and we hate what's unfamiliar. And what's familiar might actually be what's hurting us. It might actually be pain. It might be rejection. That's familiar. So we stick with it because we feel safe with what's familiar because it's predictable. But if we get into the territory of what's unfamiliar, even if it's healthier for us, it's unfamiliar. It's scary. We don't like it. So the aim is you have to make what you want more familiar. And that's an internal job. That's an active practice. So you have to make it more familiar. If you want to attract healthy love into your life, you have to make the idea of that more familiar. And this all just comes to our mind responds. I feel like I'm just rinsing and repeating what my teacher, because I'm saying her words, Marissa Peer's words, because she's ingrained it in me so much in our training. But I lost my train of thought after that. We love what's familiar. We hate what's unfamiliar. Our mind only responds to two things: the words we say and the pictures we make. And so what we need to do is we just need to shift our thinking around it. Even if it's, some people try and go from I hate myself to I love myself. And that's a massive jump. It's really hard. You can't do that. So what you do is you do baby steps. I'm learning to like myself. I'm learning to accept myself. I'm learning to engage in these self-care practices because they help me feel more confident or more like I like myself, if that makes sense. So, I always say my favorite saying is life is nothing but the stories we tell ourselves. And that's because it is. Life can be, and I think this is where people forget what's possible for them, is they don't realize how much potential they have to create the life that they want simply through checking in with their thoughts and their feelings. And I think a lot of people feel so disempowered in creating a life that's more fulfilling to them. But to me, throughout my journeys and everything that I've learned, it's about, one, accepting where you are, learning to appreciate what you have right now, but also learning that if you do the internal work, if you do those scary parts, explore that within yourself, those darker sides of yourself, that helps you create the life that you want. You have so much potential to shift your thinking, your feeling. And sometimes it can be, again, we'll bring it back to the holistic approach. Sometimes it's not always just what you're thinking and feeling. And a key example of this is what I've been going through recently. So like I said, the last year or two, I've really been in it. I've really been going through it. And I've also had some really bad, really severe gut issues. I've had a bellyache for like 12 months. And I just thought it was stress. And I was, trying to do the healing stuff. And I also was, very overwhelmed because I'm trying to build my own business. So like I wasn't doing everything I should be doing. But also like what I was finding over the last few months is I just was so negative and I was really struggling to be my happy, positive self. And that was really weird for me. And I had no idea what was going on. I was like, maybe I'm just in it. Maybe this is just a part of it. I'm sure I'll find my way out at some point. And then I saw a naturopath a couple of weeks ago. And he said, you have a bad bacterial infection in your upper intestinal tract. Like, I'm going to give you some herbs and it will help clear it up for you. After being on those herbs for about 3 days, I just my mental health went up like 10 times. I was like, it was a physical issue. So, and he said when you have these infections, they will affect feel a lot more negative. It will affect your mental health. And so since being on those herbs, it's cleared. And I'm like, I feel like myself again. So I think, again, it always comes back to the holistic approach. Are you checking in? What's going on within your mind, within your body? Are you nourishing yourself? Does your body have what it needs? And it's a combination of the two. I think sometimes it's like the mind will influence the body and the body will influence your mind. So, joining the two in, but then also like Dr. Joe Dispenza's work also teaches you a lot of it is very much coming from the mind of, it's about, are you meditating? Are you, getting into this zone of this future life you want to create and cultivating the feelings? I think that's the more important part, cultivating the feelings of the life that you want. And sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's really hard. So depends.
So how do people reach you?
So you can find me on my website, which is Ardor Wellness, ARDOUR, WELLNESS.com. Or I'm on Facebook and Instagram under the same business name, Ardor Wellness. Ardor means like really strong passion, that fire burning in your belly, that zest for life. And that's what I really want to give people. Just help people fall passionately in love with their lives is my aim.
Amazing. This is an amazing podcast. And we'll definitely have to have a part 2.
Okay, easy done.
Because I'm going to have to be, after I do a session or 2 with you, we can have a part 2. Because I'm terrified of what's gonna come out of the sessions.
Don't be terrified, just be open. It hurts in the moment and the memories, but by the end of the session you're like, I feel so much better. And usually you're like, I had no idea that was an issue. But that's also the beauty about RTT, rapid transformational therapy. Within 1 to 3 sessions, you're good to go. Your problem's pretty much eliminated. If there's a lot of layers to it, it might take up to 6. I've rarely had clients come back after 1 month package, which is 1 RTT session and 2 follow-up coaching sessions. Most of them are pretty good to go. It's just, we think that talk therapy has taught us it takes lifetimes to overcome things. It doesn't. It takes 2 hours of hypnotherapy of someone that really knows what they're doing and they're digging for the right things. Your problem kind of just dissipates after a while.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Wow. So
It's
on
been a
that
pleasure.
note, I really appreciate you reaching out to me.
Yeah.
This has been a truly amazing session.
Yeah. Once we figured out the time differences.
Yeah. Well, this is the first time I've ever had a podcast with somebody in Australia.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So you're the first.
Excellent.
So, actually, I think I have another one coming up with somebody else in Australia. And I got somebody else coming up with one in Shanghai, which is going to be interesting.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So I'm going to stop the recording now and we can chat.
All right. Beautiful.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. And if you want to be a guest on my channel, please contact me. I'm at jeff@mydigital-memories.com. Or please feel free to visit my website, which is mydigital-memories.com. Thanks, and until next time. Thanks, guys. I'm Jeff K., founder of My Digital Memories. We preserve, protect, and organize your precious memories, which include your photographs, negatives, videotapes, home movies, records, and cassette tapes. These can be stored for today and future generations. After our parents died, my sister and I were cleaning out their home and we came across boxes of photos that we wanted and our kids wanted. I knew I had to digitize all these paper photographs, slides, and negatives so they can be shared with family and friends. In My Digital Memories, we take your photos and most types of media and digitize them. We're able to restore photographs and remove unwanted scratches or blemishes. We also digitize home movies. We deliver the end product into any type of storage imaginable, whether it's on a USB thumb drive, a DVD, or storage in the cloud. We make it easier for you to share your digital memories with family and friends. Were you aware your family memories, paper photographs, and other media were only designed to last a maximum of 20 years in a climate-controlled environment? People care about their memories, genealogy, and where they come from. My client Sally gave me countless VHS tapes and had no idea of the treasure she was about to find. She heard her father's voice for the first time. Her father died in Vietnam and she never met him. She broke down in tears and was extremely grateful. Let's always remember our pets, our furry friends who are loyal to the end. Please contact me to preserve what is most valuable in your life for today and future generations. You are never forgotten with My Digital Memories.